myself out.
I am afraid of...
I'm terrified and paralyzed by...
I am deathly afraid of...
Welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast with your host, me, Ryan Perez. Hello, and welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Perez. This week, my guest is former comedian and now general manager of the Dallas Comedy Club and good friend, Jamie Lee Hogan. Jamie has been the general manager since the Dallas Comedy House was, purchased and rebranded as Dallas Comedy Club. She has been the general manager in charge of stand-up as well as booking the stand-up talent. In this episode, we talk about her start in stand-up, being a mom, being a general manager at 2 comedy clubs now, and how that's changed her life and how she follows her passion by working 2 jobs. And then we get into her fear of heartbreak, which is it encompasses an amazing amount of people, considering all the different roles she plays, not just as a single woman, but as a mother, as a general manager, and all things, friendship-wise. So in this episode, we'll talk about that. So let's get into that interview right now with Jamie Lee Hogan. All right, my guest this week is comedian and club manager of Dallas Comedy Club, the newest comedy club in the Dallas comedy scene here, strategically located on the edge of Deep Ellum down in Dallas, Texas. Jamie Hogan, how are we doing today, Jamie?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I woke up a little earlier than I thought I would, got some things done, ate some breakfast, and here we are. I was like, all right, I've got everything just under, because I'm always afraid when I schedule them kind of early that's the day I'm going to oversleep. And it's like, right. I'll get up at we're supposed to do this at 11:30 and it's like 11:25 and I'm just now waking up and I need coffee before I do anything.
Yeah.
That's my go-to. I have to drink my coffee, take my medications, and then contemplate the rest of my day.
Yes, then interact with humans. I do need to clarify something. You saying I'm a comedian is also like saying I was a high school quarterback. So it's not necessarily relevant anymore other than I just did it. So. Okay.
But you kind of started before I did. You started with some of my contemporaries, Paul and Raj and stuff like that. And how did you how did you even find comedy?
It was on a date. We went to the Addison Improv and there was a promotional flyer for a comedy class. And my date said, this is something you should do. And I did it. And it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. I can say that I've been comedy adjacent ever since. Mm-hmm. I did enjoy it. I did choose parenting as a easier path. I guess not an easier path, but I thought it was just gonna be a harder lifestyle to try to continue to do both. So I kind of shelved comedy for a while, but I've always stayed around it and been adjacent. And if it's something you love and it's something that's, you're supposed to be a part of, it's going to find its way back to you. And that's what happened.
So how many more dates did that guy have after you started comedy?
Well, yeah, he said he hated the fact that he ever got me into it, but I do have a child with him, so. Oh,
well, that's awesome. But it's awesome that someone knows you well enough that they can kind of see something that maybe either you're too afraid to try, or that you wouldn't think to do.
Yeah, 2 of the greatest things he's ever given me was the nudge to get into comedy and my son. So, yeah, I appreciate him for that.
And you have 2 sons.
I do.
And you have Brady and Mason. They're both you're a boy mom, but technically you're almost a man mom at this point. They're
my roommates right now. That's kind of how it is. And I just pay the rent. So they're great. They're fantastic. I'm very blessed. Very fortunate to have such good kids, some good kids that want me to do things that I love, that support my hobbies, that, I can't use them as excuses not to do things anymore. So
that's such an introvert move too. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, kids need me. I gotta go. Just get in a blanket and.
It's the greatest out that nobody can argue with it.
So, do they enjoy your comedy? Do you just throw comedy at them all the time, or are you the fun mom that just has the mean comments?
I mean, I'd like to think I'm the fun mom. I don't think they think that. We do share like a passion for some of the same comics, so they don't know any of my material, but I give them like my friends. I send them your clips. I send them Paul's clips. I think I've told you the story where I had Paul's album downloaded on my on Apple iTunes, and Brady would be doing all of Paul's material at the lunch table at like 5th or 6th grade. He was just killing. It's great.
But that's the life, to be able to. But I think comedy is such a useful skill, because I think, like you said, it's one of those things where you learn so much about yourself that I've made a lot of peace with a lot of things that I was super insecure about and uncomfortable with myself coming into stand-up. Like I've learned that, this isn't something that's a bad thing. I've only made it that way.
You're absolutely right. I always tell people when they find out that I've done it, I just say it was the cheapest form of therapy I've ever had, because you actually get paid to tell people your problems.
Yeah.
And you twist it in a way that it's healing, because you hear the laughter, and laughter is universally healing, right? Unless you're punching down or making fun of something you shouldn't be. But when you're using it in the right capacity, right, for the most part, there's a lot of pain involved with comedy, and people can twist that and just that cycle of healing. It's actually really cool. And for that, I truly appreciate having ever done it.
Yeah. And it also helps, I think, in a way, kind of sort through your feelings. So you're not, like, I would say, holding on to something, or like you can either find a way to laugh about it, or just kind of logically, break it down into its simplest form. Like, why am I feeling this way? And
Absolutely.
You can take your joke writing formula and backtrack it. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes things, whenever you feel something like that, to me, it always makes it easier to digest when you can actually understand where it came from, what it's about, and be like, okay, noted.
Yeah. And for me, I've never stopped writing, because one thing I'm truly grateful for is the ability to frame a circumstance in a comical way and be able to write it down. Whether ever I use them, I don't, that's a question for the future, I guess. But I love the fact that that's a great therapeutic thing to do, is frame it in a way that's hilarious.
Yes. And so we're going to fast forward here a few years. So you did comedy for a little while. You've been comedy adjacent. You've been like fans. You've been like a connoisseur. That somehow led to you to being a manager at the Addison Improv for a few years. How did you come across getting into that role as a manager?
I think it was just out of them needing somebody pretty bad. I think Raj suggested to Sean, why don't you ask Jamie? It was a position where I needed a job. One thing I've learned throughout my career in different capacities is, if you're not truly meant to do something, it's never really going to work. You're never going to feel at peace with it. And I had some jobs that really destroyed my soul, I guess you could say, because it really wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. So I was so grateful to Sean for giving me that opportunity, and it was fantastic. I really loved it. I learned so much. I had done service industry, years prior, so I was familiar with how a restaurant worked, but the comedy part was just a passion of mine. So it was just kind of a perfect formula. But after COVID, I just never went back.
That's understandable too. I mean, it's one of those things too where if you're going back, you're not going back, but other people are. It kind of gets weird, because then you feel like maybe they're at a level you're not, and so now the people that maybe you were either on the same as peers were now almost superiors. It almost felt like, because I could, to me, that's how it would feel. Like if I was like, I'm going to stay here, I don't want to go back in that situation, but other people were, that those people would all of a sudden maybe have a leg up, maybe for being, I guess, troopers or anything like that.
I mean, I think at that point it was just, we had been through so much emotionally I mean, when you're in an entertainment capacity and then you're put in the house for a month, for a year and a half or whatever it was just, and going with 2 teenage boys, going through it with them, it was just a lot. And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay kind of stepping away. And I also have another full-time job. Yeah. So that was, that was something else that I didn't need to go back per se. So, but inevitably it kind of found its way back to me again.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, when Ian and Rosie, I guess, bought what was Dallas Comedy House that had shut down during COVID and rebranded it, and then I guess, did you just reach out to them, or did they find you? No,
it was another comic in the area that was going to be involved in it, but that did not work out. But he recommended that I interview. Mm-hmm. And that they reach out to me. So it's funny because when I was driving Brady to orientation mm-hmm. for his freshman year of college, I got the call. I literally had kind of that gateway interview with another person involved with their business on the drive down that evening. And it kind of hit me. I can't use, I have to go do something. Mm-hmm. Brady's leaving. He's a huge part of my life. And, I still have Mason here too, but it's just, half of your entire world is going to be somewhere else. And again, that's going to free up time. Yeah. And he didn't need me. It was just an excuse that I no longer had in the house to avoid making plans. Mm-hmm. And I saw this as a great opportunity to get back into being social, to get back into comedy. And I was like, well, it's another job. It's another commitment. And, I went and interviewed 2 days later and absolutely fell in love with them. The energy in the venue, even though it was under construction at the time, was just amazing. Yeah. And it was just a great fit, and they were fantastic. So yeah. Yeah.
And you're doing good things. Like every time,
Thank you.
Every time we do a show there, it seems like there's a little more. Like it's unfortunate with comedy clubs, you wish there's a line out the door every time, but it's a slow burn as people get to walk by enough times, like, oh, maybe I should go in.
Well, it's fantastic, and I can tell you that it's selfishly, there's a little bit of a playground element for me that I want to put the people that I want to be around and that I want to entertain and want to get that exposure that are good. So fortunately, I am blessed to have a lot of friends that are really funny. Yeah. Otherwise, it would be very awkward.
Yeah, and you're fostering young talent the right way by saying these are the people you should aspire to be like if you want to work here or in this industry. Here are the people that I feel are taking those steps to be, working comics. So if you want to be a working comics, here's who you should watch. Not this person's done good things for the club and stuff like that. Like as a fellow booker, I appreciate the people that grind and stuff, and I'll give them stage time where I can, but I'm not going to put you in a position where I don't think you're ready.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's, I wanted to figure out how to somewhat differentiate the club, because we do have so much going on there. We are a school as well. And there are now, from what I've noticed after COVID, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot more venues in general that are just doing stand-up. So there's just, I don't want to say it's watered down, but there's just, I think a lot, granted, I did comedy 20 years ago. To me, it's a lot more opportunities to get in front of people with a microphone than there have been in the past, correct?
Yeah, I do. I believe so. When the pandemic hit, I was talking to the manager of the club I work for, Hyenas, and I was like, when this lifts, I was like, we're going to be almost the only game in town. Because I was like, with all the money restrictions and everything else,
right?
No one's going to spend $500 to go see the Beatles. You're not going to people that would go every year to those big festivals and stuff.
Right.
You're not going to have that disposable income to pay that much. And so comedy is maybe $100 on the weekend. I was like, you're talking about live, low budget entertainment.
Right.
And
there's a lot of it.
Yeah. And so I feel like that, yes, there is a lot more opportunities. There are a lot more clubs. I'm pleasantly surprised by how many clubs this scene is able to, I guess, perform at and just have the talent level to actually sustain them all.
Right. And I think the ones that are supporting the higher level talent, those are rising back to the top.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of bars and a lot of like, oh, we've got this corner and, a PA system and we'll put some stand up on there. So I think also it's given some people that may not have the experience a sense of entitlement because they're crushing at this dive bar all the time, right?
Well, and it's just you have to know your audience. You have it by being a performer like I am. Like I understand certain things work in certain venues. Like there's a bit I'm working on about service dogs that gets laughs at open mic all the time, but I'll do it at a real show. And it's what I've learned is that if it's getting that much laughs at open mic, is that it's a lot of comics and a lot of people that are really into comedy, and so it pushes the edge to where a normal audience is like, that's a little mean, and so the regular audience kind of pulls back.
Got it.
But if you're just performing for the same people, you think it's an absolute killer joke, but you have to kind of learn and get that experience and work your way into performing for a paying audience,
right?
Because
that had the luxury of Netflix for a year and a half as their only and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok as their source of comedy, right?
Yeah.
So you have to bring something to the table when they're coming out to see it live, because I feel like they've been like drinking comedy from a fire hose, more so than ever before, when people just had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
For a while.
Even before the pandemic, I was like my biggest competitor for stand-up shows is Netflix, because it's like, why am I going to go see somebody I don't know when I can go to Netflix and stream someone I do know and like,
or 6 different people in the same night.
Yeah, and just have the superstars, and it's just it becomes I guess a feeding frenzy. Like I'm always like I'm surprised at how much Austin's sustained. Like I thought people would have like dissipated by now.
Yeah.
But to me that feels like it's the Wild West down there. Like there's nothing. You're going down there and prospecting for gold because you see Joe Rogan, Kill Tony, and all that down there, and you're thinking, I can just maybe pan and be the gold that they find down there in their talent search. Like I can be that guy in Austin because there's nothing else. And that didn't entice me in any way. I just was like, I don't want to go down there there's no clubs. There's just, you're doing. Everybody's down there. Everybody tried to go down there, and it's just kind of a big, I don't know. I mean, I'm not as familiar with the scene. I've heard a lot of stories. But I personally think that Dallas has a really good thing going on, because we do have so many, the handful of good clubs that are, bringing in major headliners, I think are giving greater opportunities to those that are, the best around to be, to have the exposure, as opposed to going down there and competing with everybody in a market that you're not necessarily familiar with. Yeah. And I also, I would put the scene against any city outside of New York and LA. Just by pound per pound, I would say we are a top 5 comedy market by just comedian talent wise. I had a guy this week visiting from San Francisco, a friend of mine, and he did, I guess, your open mic on Wednesday, and then I gave him a guest spot hands on Thursday. He was like, wow, this is a really good scene. I'm like, yeah, I'll put this up against Chicago. I'll go against Chicago, Seattle. I'll go against all of them. Yeah.
I mean, I think we absolutely, and that's kind of what I like our Bangers series as, just kind of like the showcase. Like, here's, you want to look at Dallas comedy, that's what I do when I put it together. Yeah. Right? Who do I think the best are?
Yeah. I appreciate your consideration in those. But it's just one of those things where to me as a comic, I don't know if you felt this way, is like, I don't feel different, like I'm doing anything different than I did when I started, other than just having a better understanding of me versus
experience. I mean, and that's kind of what I look at it from the perspective of somebody who's booking, or somebody who's giving advice, solicited or not.
Yeah.
You just want to understand the mechanics behind it.
Yeah.
And not just, this idea I have is really funny, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Right. There's a lot more thought process as we get older. I think that's just how we are in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I put a lot more thought into things before I do anything, whether it's comedy, whether it's booking, whether it's, I'm a little more strategic, I guess you could say, in my life.
So has Brady or Mason expressed any interest in doing stand-up outside of the lunchroom?
It's funny. Brady actually had it. I was like, dude, I've got the resources, like to help you do it. And I do recommend the classes in general. And even when I was taking a class, it's not teaching you how to be funny. It's teaching you how to structure a joke. It's teaching you the business. It's teaching you how to behave, in that setting. It's still a business situation. And a lot of people, unfortunately, don't remember that because it is a hobby of theirs, right? But when you are running a business and you see somebody who's just being disrespectful or abusing privileges or things like that, it's just kind of a turnoff. No matter how, they got to be really, 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 really funny to get away with stuff like that, like a headliner stuff.
And even then, sometimes you still don't. It's not worth it to deal with that.
It's not. But Brady did. I was like, I'm not going to turn him away from it, but I'm definitely not pushing him towards it either.
I get as somebody that I kind of did both. So I did I started stand up in 2006, and then I took Dean's class in like 2009. And so, to me, I felt like I had the experience of both sides. To me, there are people that are like, I won't take a comedy class because I don't want to be a copycat and I get that too, because the comedy classes taught you this is the way to do it. So everybody does it that way. So yes, they can come out initially as cookie cutters, but it's up to you after you take that class to customize that cookie cutter to fit what you do versus just to keep doing. People just think that they have to basically be that person the rest of their comedy career. I'm like, you don't have to be that person. He's just giving you the rules. And then you take your own creativity and learn how you can break them on stage, because not everybody can break them the same way. I can't be like Tyson Pfeiffer and have this faux confidence. And because Tyson looks like a confident man. I don't look like a confident man, so I can't go up there and talk about the things he talks about, like dating, fitness, and things like that. Like there are things that Tyson can get away with that I can't.
Right. Well, I will say I don't necessarily agree with from my experience, personally, the cookie cutter thing. If you look at the people that I knew that took Dean's class, Justin Foster, Raj Sharma, Paul Varghese, Vaughn Daniel, so Raj, Vaughn, and I were all in the same kind of group. I didn't see that. I don't think so. I think everybody's distinctly different, and even from the jump. Now, I will say though, if people are not taking the class for what it's worth and they're only regurgitating what they're taught, then you're going to have that cookie cutter.
Or people that are just afraid of trying to push their boundaries. Like they get. That's the one thing I struggle with for a few years in comedy is I got to a safe space where I was really good as an opener. I had really good jokes, not great jokes, but I just felt like I had an idea to maybe do an act out, and I'd be like, oh, this is where, and I would pull back because I'm like, this is working. And I had to learn to push past that. And I feel like the people that just aren't brave enough to push past and actually be who they want to be, because they just get laughs doing what they're doing. That's what I consider the cookie cutter, is the person that's afraid to, I guess, I used to call comedies like a shoebox. Like, you remember the shoebox dioramas we made?
Yeah.
That he just gave you the box and you decorate your box that way. Like you can, and if you don't decorate your box, then you're just going to have that same plain box.
Right. No, that makes total sense. It's funny because I do see a lot of premise. What would that look like? 1, 2, 3, you know what I mean? And then punchline. And I can see that happening a lot more. But I will say that if people are not putting their own personal spin on things, they're not digging deep, and they're not really getting to the root of what you and I were talking about, kind of that therapeutic level. I'm not going to say they're not going to be successful, but to me, those are some of the best when they're talking, when you're getting real.
To me, that's a signature bit. To me, that's what I call them. As those are as you need to learn how a signature bit. You can be funny up there, but if you're just doing basic funny up there, they're not going to remember anything you did. They're just going to remember you were funny. Like people, people will come up to me and say, "Hey, I really love the crock pot or bit or the drive-through."
You know what? You're I will say this, and Linda Stogner and I had this conversation about there was a comic that was just tired of doing this one bit that everybody loved. And we were just saying, but hey, remember how many different comics we see. And if we remember one bit of yours, that's kind of, that's something. I mean, that's something, right? There's something to that. That means that people are remembering you, because there are a lot of comics that I couldn't necessarily tell you one of their best jokes. I just know that they were funny, like you mentioned before, right? I will say yours, to me, I saw you years ago at the Improv, and it was the apartment gates.
Yeah.
That's one of the, because it's so true.
Yeah.
And I've lived in both of those apartments. You know what I'm saying?
My girlfriend, that's the one she loved when she saw me at a show, and that's how we met. Is she came to a show with a friend, and I did the gated community, and she just said, "I love the way you kind of pull in the gate." But yeah, and it's just, and that's one thing you strive for. It's like, where's the emotional root in that? And thanks to Robert Hawkins for giving me the open cell block C, because that's not what I used to say. And he was like, you should say it should be like a prison. And he like pulled me aside, and I've been blessed to be such a hard worker and things like that I have gotten like advice and respect from people that are like Paul, Robert Hawkins, headliners that toured that actually will help me in those situations, instead of just be like, nice working with you, and walk away. Right.
No, it's pretty cool. And something else that I do tell like some of the newer comics, or like students that ask, I say, look in the community and pick your top 3 or 4 that you aspire to be like locally, right? The good ones. And if you look at the good ones, they're not on the message boards complaining that they're not getting booked. They're not, they're not, getting involved in all that. I'm angry, and let me voice this on social media, and let's bring other new people into this fold with me so that I feel comfortable in this misery. Because, there's a lot of really great people to look up to. And if you look at what they're doing, it's all positive. It's all on the up and up. It's all smart, strategic branding. It's all, I mean, they're getting it figured out in a way that is professional, and it is pushing them to get as booked as much as they are. And that's what I tell young comics too, is like my big advice is, when you're starting, find somebody that you can complain to, that's somebody that you can go, that's on the same level of comedy you are. Because complaining to me about not getting up early at open mics, I'm more upset about, I have a weekend 3 months down the road that still isn't filled. So we're on different there are people that would kill to have my problems. And when I started booking some of my openers early, there were some comics that would always like, I bomb so hard, I hate this and stuff like that. And I'm like, I messaged them like, hey, I book you. You're a working comic now. You can't have these posts, because people do it privately. You're welcome to vent privately, but just don't do it in a public forum, because you and I do see that stuff. Yeah, I was just telling them, I'm like, listen, there are comics, and there's 300 comics in the scene, and 298 of them would love to be in the position you're in. And so you have to take that into account when, you can be upset about not having a great set, but you can't put it in the forum that you're terrible and that you hate comedy or that you suck, because people will wonder, then why are you doing it? It's that you build this perception of why are people going to come see you if you're not proud of your work. Right. No, I totally get it. And so, that's one thing too. Like as a veteran comic, like you can. It's okay to validate emotions. Like I can tell you, you're totally right for feeling like left if you get left off of a show or something. Yeah, absolutely, you should be. But instead of going on there and fuck this club for basically not booking me, they are obviously instead of burning the bridge, just okay, just quietly take that criticism and use it. On your next run of shows and at open mics and everything else. And so open mics, I think people or comics need to understand the best way to utilize the opportunity of an open mic, because I don't always think the response of your peers is necessarily the best expression of how you are doing at that time, right? So I feel like, and it's a hard thing because we are humans and we need that validation, and what a great way to get your new material validated, right? But if it's people, say comics don't like you, let's say it's hilarious, but they don't want you to be funnier than them. I do feel like getting your cadence down, getting your wording down, how you feel on the stage at that time is the best that you can take away from an open mic, as opposed to an audience response. Now, I will say what I've noticed at our open mic, I don't know if you see this at yours, we're getting a lot more just audience members that are not comics. So there is a little bit of a balance there, but I feel like people lean way too much on how they did in an open mic, which is just, to me, not the greatest sense of how it's going to do on stage.
Yeah, and some people, and there are people also that they'll either do extremely well and just take that and try to say, hey, see, what am I doing here? And it's just one of those things where I'm telling them, it's like there are things that I watch. Like I don't watch you every time. I watch you quarterly at best, just because I want to see the foot. I want to see the step. I want to see the real footstep, not the baby steps that you're taking every single time. Like I'll watch you if you want me to watch you, I can watch you, and I'll be like, here are the things that I notice. And one thing I never try to criticize is writing. Like I don't rewrite material, because I was like, that's, as Paul told me, that's your baby. You telling somebody that that's not funny is the worst thing you can tell, is the worst piece of unsolicited you can give them, because now they are immediately on the defensive. They are immediately now, and then they, you get basically into, I guess, either an uncomfortable, like, just, I'm like, you may want to try to do this, or focus on these points. Focus on, tell me how it feels. Don't explain it to me. I always tell people, funny is a feeling. It's not a thought.
Right.
If you think it's funny, maybe. But if you feel that it's funny, it is. Like it's...
Right. Well, have you ever met a comic that's not in their head?
There are a few. Anthony Perez was one. Anthony Perez to me was like the most, like, I was like, you just literally... Like he literally turns it off and on, like it's always on in a different way. Like he was just always a funny guy to talk to, but he just never to me felt like that he was in his head over anything. Like and maybe it was just his life situation and everything else that led to that, where he just is, happy. Just I'm happy to be here, and so he's just like,
Got it.
But
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, he was one of the people that I don't think is always in their head. Like there are a few comics, and Tom Murphy's another one, and a new guy.
Oh, okay.
He's really good, but it's one of those things where I'm letting you paint, because trying to get you to paint the way I want you to you're just not ready for that yet. You're painting masterpieces without knowing it, and I don't want to start putting expectations on you that all of a sudden it makes this not fun.
Interrupt that process.
Yeah, but he's amazing to watch. He's a good guy. Yeah, he's really good, but he's to me, I've never felt like he's like overthought it, or he just literally comes in da 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 and throws hilarious things up there, but then you don't talk to him off stage. He never talks about like, oh man, that was a terrible set or anything. Like he just literally just takes it all in stride, which is a good and bad thing, because I think in some ways, yes, that's a great way to go about it, but you miss because you can't focus.
Yeah. Do you miss growth there?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. But yeah, there are a few. Like there are a few people, and I envy them, just because it's like, okay, it took me years to get over that stuff, because I could literally, when I did sets, just be like, I'm angry, or either that, or just, like you want to do something and you don't, and you just get off stage like, son of a bitch. That happened a lot with guest spots too. Like I would be like, okay, here's my plan, and then I realized it's like that's how I know, that's my formula of how to know you're ready or not. If you're stressing over a show, like this is my chance, I've got to make this, you're not ready. If it's a guest spot and you're already like, okay, so once I do this, then hopefully like they'll start booking. No, you're already thinking too far ahead into this, you have to to me, if when I had my big break is I was like, I didn't fucking care anymore. I was 3 years in. No one had even booked me. Like Randy had passed me as an opener, but he had never given me dates. I'd emailed like for 6 months and just got no response. And I was just like, I was a week from my 3-year anniversary. I'm like, I guess maybe you start to, there's things that you start to, think about yourself. Like maybe this is all I'm going to be as an open mic comic. And you just kind of rationalize, is that okay? Is that, that okay to be? And it just kind of slowly unwound me into the point that when I did get an opportunity that last minute with Dale Jones at Fort Worth, I was like, okay. I was like, I just didn't care anymore. And the guy that had watched me, because he had watched me bomb, like, so, and it's also a thing too, is like trying to break the stigma of being unfunny when you are doing the work is one of the hardest things. And that's why I explained to young comics too. I was like, impressions matter. You can't, people, if they see you as an unfunny comic, it takes almost you being on them, going to another show, seeing you perform on that show and getting a room full of people to laugh. Because if they're just seeing you at open mic, that's not enough. They can still say, well, it's not a real show.
Right. I also think it matters what the intention is, like why people get into it in the first place. If it's just a hobby and an outlet, then cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if it's somebody that's really aspiring to make this a career, then those strategic, that growth, taking advice, being strategic, being a good business person to work with, knowing how to write an email, all that stuff is very important. But if it's something you're just looking to do to, let off some steam, have a good time, tell people at the office you do it, then that's different. Yeah.
And I tell people I don't know if it's even a career, because it's not one of those things where you can get into it and stay. Like it's not something that I can do for 10 years and be vested in comedy. Like it's one of those things where it could be a year. And that's my big comedy phobia, is like, what if I got some kind of publicity or heat where I'm like, okay, let's quit everything. Let's focus solely on comedy. And it's like a 1 year run. And then everybody's like, we just didn't have the numbers. We don't really want to book you, have you back. And so all the opportunities you had just completely start to close around you. And then
that's crazy. I've had a couple comics be like, hey, I quit my job and now I'm doing this full time. And you're like, oh, okay. Like what is that breaking point of saying this is what I'm going to do? You know what I mean? How much do you have to have in your belt? I don't even have that answer, because it's a very risky move. Unless you're booked out, every weekend for a year and you can save some of that money. And, if the next year doesn't have the same kind of results, you can go back to being an accountant.
Yeah. But even then, it's like I would be starting over at 45 with no college degree. So there's that. And that's what it weighs on me. It's like, that's why I don't quit what I do during the day, because I'm like, I have no idea if Netflix called, absolutely, that'd be awesome. But I'm still not quitting. I'm still not quitting until I absolutely am forced to by the amount of money that I'm being offered, to where it's like we're going to give you 1.5 million, but we need you full time. Then that would, that ridiculous price maybe, but it would be a ridiculous sum of money that I couldn't say no to.
Right. That seems pretty responsible.
Well, you just, as somebody like you, especially, you just realize you've got other people to support. I don't, but I mean, you just realize like you don't have a lot of skills and the workforce is getting younger.
Yeah, I can't even figure out the workforce right now because I don't know where everybody is.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's hiring. Everybody, from service industry to, State Farm to like all these different levels and different kind of career paths, and nobody can get any work. And I'm just like, where did everybody go?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just,
sorry, I know that's not relevant, but
but I mean, it's one of those things where I've got a 401k and everything else, and I'm not just throwing that away just for, a year of comedy.
Right. When you have the ability to do it and do what you currently do. So that's, I don't think anybody's like, hey, I need you Monday to Friday to be a comic.
Yeah.
during the day.
True, but you're also like if you're doing stuff with LA and stuff like that, they'll want you there to audition,
Yeah, that makes sense.
right? Things like that. So that's that's kind of just where I drew the line. It's like, I get that, and I'm not the best at networking myself. Like I know I'm a good comedian, but I just was like, I'm not one of those people that's like, hey, I don't know how to introduce myself to clubs that are not here and be like, so here's what I do.
Yeah, and that's tricky too, because I get those kind of submissions all the time from people that are, they're good or they're decent or whatever, and they're from Denver. And you're like, cool, but we're still in year one of our club.
Mm-hmm.
What's gonna bring? You know what I'm saying? You may be great, but if nobody knows who you are and you don't necessarily have any big credits, that's a risky move on my part to bring somebody in from another area. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure you have the same issue.
True. And
in other markets.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too, where, I'm a middle act, I headline? Yes. But I don't have the draw. That's why I don't do an and friend show at the Addison Improv. It's like, I don't want to show them that 20 people are only going to come see me, and I can only bring 20 people. I'd rather you fill the room and let me come knock it down. I'll do that 10 minutes and destroy, but I don't want to set the expectation of, I'm a draw and then show that I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, it's risky, right?
Yeah. It's just one of those things where I've just, as somebody that does it, like I understand where I'm at right now. And that's working.
Well, you have fantastic material. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I think you're being smart and you're being strategic, like we talked about earlier, right? Like just calculated, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're not getting any opportunities because, well, I can't book him as a feature or an opener because he considers himself a headliner. Yeah. Right?
Absolutely.
So it's that, where you don't want to kind of overconfidence yourself out of jobs.
Yeah. I love being flexible. I like being, like, I book the MC talent, and I love doing that because I'm a really good MC. And it's one of those things where it's like, I know what I look for in an MC, so I can look at people and say, okay, this is what I need from you. Like, I need energy, I need conciseness, I need announcements.
Yeah, and that's hard too, because when you have an opportunity and you kind of build the show from an energy perspective, or you match up the comics to support the headliner. There's some fantastic comics that are feature and headlining material that you just need that energy for that particular show to open. Yeah, you know what I mean? And you just hope you can pitch it to them in that way that they're not like
assaulted.
I mean, the good comics that I do choose to work with are very open and receptive, and they get it. They get the method of the madness, right? So, but there are people that are like, no, I'm not an opener. Yeah. And you're like, all right, cool.
But to me, I'm like, why wouldn't you? What do you do? What else are you doing this weekend? That's the way I've always looked at it. Like, so you'd rather not make any money than, or not have stage time for what you believe you should be. Okay, and so that's never made sense to me. I'm like, I'll be whatever you need. So if you need like a 5-minute, because Chris Kattan was that way, like. We had 5 features and we all did 15 minutes because he only had like 35 minutes.
Right.
But he wanted the rest of the hour to be good, but nobody really steal the show.
Right. Okay.
And so you learn little things like, I'll do 15. It's 15 minutes in front of a full audience. And now with the social media age, why wouldn't you? Like, every set could be, if you could magically do perfectly real level material, you could have 15 to 30 reels.
Right.
In 15 minutes of stage time.
Right. That's very true. It's weird because when people are pitching themselves to you and they've got like hundreds of thousands of followers and all these views on TikToks, TikTok, I know I sounded old when I said, it's I go in and I look at a bunch of different things,
Mhm.
because if you got 100,000 followers and 40 likes on the majority of your stuff, then I'm like, you really don't have those followers.
Yeah.
And also, how many kids are on there where they're clicking like, and that doesn't necessarily translate to a ticket sale.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of
That's something too. Like when I started, like I'm very in my social media. I don't follow a lot of comics for the most part. Like I'll follow the guys I book and stuff like that, but I don't try to follow every single comic because I just didn't want it to be an echo chamber. Is what I feel like.
smart.
So if you get 300 likes, but 200 of your friends are comics, you're only reaching, you're not reaching your audience. All you're going to be circulated is more comics as they join Instagram. You're creating basically this echo chamber of people that won't know who you are, but will like all your posts, but will never come to shows because they're doing the same thing you're doing. And so
Right. That's a good term for it. Echo chamber.
I get the idea. And yeah, absolutely. I support, other comics across this. I will pound the table for comics that I book and others that I don't, that I respect and everything. But I don't want them to be the people I post to at social media. So yeah, my social media follower count is going to be probably lower just because I'm not going to your comic friend. Let's follow me. I'll follow you. Follow for follow.
Right.
I want my people to be people that saw me and either followed me or saw my reels and decided to follow me from watching my reels. That way, I build a fan base. If it's, right now, if it's 10, that's 10, and that just, how do I make it more? How do I build that engagement and stuff like that? That way they're genuine likes, not something that that either was purchased, from a site or, just basically people that, just automated systems.
Right. Well, and I think too, that gets into a much bigger conversation about how social media impacts us as humans, in general, just that false sense of security or that need to be liked, that need for validation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does everybody really like that picture of me with my kids?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I just laughed because I was like, we could, if we did this in the 90s, we'd be getting $10,000 from America's Funniest Home Videos. Well, now we're just doing it for free. Like,
absolutely right.
We've given up $10,000 and we're just doing it now for free.
Yeah.
But
although my mom always told me that the winners were chosen on the ability to get there on their own dime to win.
Wow.
So because they weren't always the greatest videos that won, right?
Yeah. That's interesting that they that you could, if you're cheaper, they would basically do that. And that was like the beginning of the end. I feel like, because America's Funniest Home Videos is that people just like, they send in tapes and eventually, it got, everybody watched it. It was.
Well, that's like now though. It's like, why was there a camera set in some of these situations? And even what you see on Instagram or whatever, it's like, why is there even a camera set up right there right now? Right.
Yeah. And like when I work with David Nihill at your club, like he taught me, these are the things you can make reels out of. And has it exploded for me like it did for him? I don't know yet. Like I just,
you know what though? I do see, I have noticed a change in your feed.
Yeah.
I do see a lot more of your stuff, which is, I think, great. Paul's doing the same thing as well. I mean, I think it's necessary whether you really want to do it or not. I mean, but I love seeing it.
Yeah.
And Dave, side note, one of the best people I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
Absolutely loves him.
I hope he comes back, guys. He
is.
That's awesome.
February, my birthday weekend next year, he already picked, and I was like, sold. Okay. So yeah, 24th, 25th of February next year.
I wish you could have picked like St. Patty's Day weekend. That'd be awesome.
We talked about that. We did talk about that, but Dave's insanely smart with how he's doing this as a business. I mean, he had a lot of friends, I think, I want to say from Silicon Valley, that kind of gave him some insights on algorithms and things like that. But man, he soaked up all that knowledge, and what he's doing is working 100%.
It's kind of working. Like I think I had maybe 1,200 followers when I worked with him. I was close. I was like 1,100 and 1,200 just right there, and now I'm at almost 1,250. So I mean, it's a slow burn. I mean, it's not, in your head sometimes you're like, maybe this first video I'll get 1 million views and it'll be, a little kickstart, and you kind of gauge as I do this, I see more reels. Like I sent you one from Mike Palashak. I don't know what clubs he works, but I was like, he's hilarious.
He's coming.
He is?
We got him booked for the end of June.
Okay. I was like, I thought I saw him somewhere. I didn't know if he was on your roster, and I was like, oh my God, that his emotional cheating bit was killing me because it was just so good.
Yeah, I was very impressed with him, and I was super excited that we're getting him.
Yeah.
I can't wait to work with him.
But yeah, that one made me funny. He's like, on paper, like if I talk to my girlfriends, like I know she gives me a lot of problem, but if I look at it on paper, I could use the help. Like I could use somebody else. But he's so good. And I was like, I hope if he's not being booked anywhere, I was like, he's a name that, and so now I kind of also will, low key throw you names that I was like, okay, here are some people that I think are, burgeoning, on Discovery that are, that have a pretty good following that might be able to draw.
Well, and that's the really exciting part. That's not something I was supposed to be doing with this job, but truth be told, I didn't want to do it unless it was going to be really good stand up there. Yeah. Right. And so I said, okay, well, the other situation fell through. I'm going to go ahead and take that over, selfishly. And I feel like it's worked. I mean, we've had some really great comics come through, and a lot of them are coming back, which is, I think, a good testament to the fact that they had a good time at our club and that, they had a good weekend. But it's people that some may have never heard of, and then some that you've heard of, like Brooks Wheelan or Brett Ernst, that I absolutely adore working with both of them. Yeah. And, again, it's like that candy store for me. This is, I loved Brett Ernst since the Wild West Comedy Tour with Vince Vaughn, Sebastian Maniscalco. And so getting to work with him and just, it's awesome. I absolutely love it.
And he's found some success as well as on Cobra Kai and stuff like that, like being the cousin, whatever, the dumb cousin.
Yeah, cousin Louis. Yeah.
And so I loved talking with Brett. Like we hung out because Paul brought him to like a cowboy bar for a cowboy game when he played Addison. And I love him. Like I just loved his energy. Like he was just so fun to talk to.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing, is being able to build these connections with, even the really good local comics, and just being so excited for their success. Like with Pung, and I was like in tears, and with Ralph, I was just so proud of, all these. You really genuinely love these people and you want them to be successful. So being a part of their journey and being able to watch and being able to help out, and what I'm saying? Like, I gave Ralph his first headlining weekend ever, and it was a huge success. And that made me so happy. I get a little choked up even talking about it now. It makes me so happy for him, because I see him work and I see him out there and I see him be a good comic. Yeah. I see him be good to other comics. You know what I mean? He's just that genuinely good guy that's figured out a lot. And I'm so happy to see the successes he's already been able to accomplish and the things that are coming his way.
And he's super young too. It's like, it's cool to see it, somebody that's getting at a time that could be the most beneficial, rather than, being, 40 or 50 or something like that and just having a short period in the game. You have a chance to be one of those long run comedy headliners that basically you grow with your audience, because your audience, if you get your 20-year-old audience in your 20s, you grow all the way through with them. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I will say though, you've got people like, is it Leanne Morgan? Yeah. Who started later on in life. So it's cool to see that that is a possibility too, right? Yes. That there is an opportunity for those older comics and people who maybe just did some other things in their life and now have that time or have that experience to be able to talk about some things. But yeah, I just like good people in general. Mm-hmm. And if you're good and you're funny, then I want to be around you.
Awesome. Well, we will now transition into what this podcast is about, which is fears. Which you have but I mean, it's such an honest fear, because it's almost like, I almost say it's a fear connection, because you get connected to somebody and then it goes away. Because
I ever since you asked me to do this podcast, and then I blurted out, heartbreak is what my fear was, my biggest fear. I was like, oh gosh, maybe I'm going to back out. I'm not going to do this. And then I was like, no, I think this is good to stretch me and kind of figure this out. I guess at this time in my life. Right.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of tracing as to what this actually is about. And I think one of my biggest problems in relationships is the fact that I don't know how to not treat it like a business situation, like a transaction. Right. And if it doesn't work out, I feel like I failed.
Okay.
And I don't like failing in my job. I don't like failing in business. So admittedly, there's a lot more variables that you can control in a business situation versus a relationship, right?
Correct.
Because you have that complete wild card or variable of a whole nother person with their own set of choices and their own set of, feelings. So I hate failing and I hate feeling stupid.
Yeah.
So that I tie that right back into heartbreak. For me, it's not, oh, I'm sad, my heart's broken. It's, oh my gosh, I feel so stupid that I didn't see that this wasn't going to work.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I feel too. Or why was I stupid enough to get my hopes up? Like why? Like, and like I was saying before the show, it's like even as a mom, like sometimes you get inadvertently heartbroken. Like it's like when you want to make something for your kid and he does it by himself. I inadvertently he says I don't need you to do this, and it's like it's low key wanted to do something for him and he's just done it, and so now it kind of it's like you realize that the things that they depend on you for are less.
Yeah, that's a way different kind of heartbreak when it comes to your kids, because there's opportunities that you see or things that they've worked so hard for that just don't work out. And the hardest thing as a mom for me has been to not intervene into life lessons, but only be there to facilitate any sort of questions or growth along the way with that, because man, does it hurt. And it just, it makes you want to cry. You want to get sick. You're just, why didn't this work out for him or whatever? But as they've grown up and seeing an opportunity you thought was missed actually became a growth opportunity to get them into something else that they truly love. And that was a hard thing for me. Again, even being a parent and not doing things like business wise, like, okay, here's the best path for you, right? Letting them kind of determine their own paths and cultivate their own likes. I absolutely love baseball, softball. I mean, I played sports all my life growing up, and when Brady didn't want to play baseball anymore, I was kind of like, but that's what we do. That's what that's in our family. And he was fantastic at it, but he just lost interest. Yeah. And I didn't force him into it. Later on, he was like, I kind of wish I would have played, but wasn't his thing. Yeah. Even if it was mine, wasn't his. And that was something I had to learn as well. I'm very fortunate that my kids are very independent and very confident. And they have good hearts. That's the other thing too, is that they're good people. But yeah, the need for me to be there to facilitate a lot is not as great anymore, or not as frequent. But I do feel like it's kind of bigger subject matters. Like it's heavier stuff, right? It's relationships, it's college, it's careers, or what do you want to do with your life? What are some goals? What are some, I'm a big law of attraction person. Yeah. And so it's kind of hard to tell them, hey, let's set some arbitrary goals, right? You don't have to have these hard, fast goals that if you don't make it, you failed, but just let's have some reference points that you are focusing on of what you want to do. So I know I completely got off tangent there, but yeah, the heartbreak thing is not fun. And I think that's one of the reasons why I also work as much as I do.
Just to kind of basically have something on your time to focus rather than focus on somebody.
To minimize my opportunities to even be in a situation where I could get my heart broken. Yeah. But, it's like if you have a back pain or some sort of body pain, your body's going to correct itself in order to avoid feeling that. But inevitably, like your alignment's going to be out, or there's going to be some other issues. So it's not healthy. I will say my work-life balance may not be the healthiest. Yeah. But I'm very happy. And that's the fortunate thing about having my hobby as another full-time job, is because it alleviates a lot of that stress that comes with just a normal job. I guess you could say.
And you love your coworkers and they love you because they've got your initials tattooed.
Yes. A couple of them do. I didn't really know what to do with that. I'm flattered, but yeah.
But I mean, that's a testament to again, just and that be another form of heartbreak too, is like when you work at something like that and having your coworkers and people that you work with for so long either having to leave or no longer being able to work with you and stuff like that. So there's love there too. And
I do. I care a lot about my coworkers. I do feel like Mama Bear there. That's just the role I take on, no matter how old I am, or if I'm older than anybody else. I like to take care of people. I like to protect people. I also like to yell at them.
Okay.
Meaning like if they're doing something just stupid, if they're because inevitably it's very difficult to separate business and personal.
Yeah.
In general, especially in the industry that we're in. If I see that they're doing something stupid in their life, I'm not their mom, but I'll let them know, hey, not a fan of that. You're better than that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't yell a lot, but
yeah,
I want to.
But yeah, like I said, and to me, like I was just lucky, and I had a comic tell me that I was autistic, and that's what kind of in 2017 kind of threw me for a loop. And I was just kind of trying to make conversation, and I didn't realize that all my little quirks were that. And so first I was super insulted, and I was like, rude, like I can't believe, this comic's absolutely rude like they say he is. And then I started looking up the symptoms, and I was like, oh, that kind of fits. And I was like, just kind of going down the list of things, like I can't make eye contact when I'm stressed. I have outbursts. I have, certain things that would trigger me. And I was like, hot damn, he's right. And so as I looked at that, that's before I started dating again. And so I learned about myself, and it's like, okay, video games, cause me unnecessary, rage, and I don't know how to emotionally process losing at video games. It just can't. It just drives me nuts that I feel like I'm doing the right things, but it's not working. So I took video games out of my life, zip, threw those out and things like that. And so when I, decided, okay, now I'm in a good place. I know what's wrong with me, or not what's wrong, but what's different about me. And I've gotten to a place where I'm okay with it. Now let's try dating. And so I met Mallory, and I approached it as, it probably is not going to work out. This is going to like an omelet thing like this. I'm trying to make an omelet. We're going to probably break an egg or two and stuff. And I failed my way through dating her to, kind of a quasi relationship. And I'm very, she's got a kid, and she doesn't, her dad, the kid's dad lives in Pacific Northwest. So he doesn't get to see her that often. So she's almost full-time mom. And so she doesn't have a lot of time. And I always, just defer. And I'm like, I'm in a good place. I don't need to feel like, oh, we haven't hung out in 3 months. What's wrong? I don't feel like that kind of guy.
Right.
I'm not that insecure that I'm like, you're spending not enough time with me. I'm like, I don't have, in my head, I'm like, you don't have the right. She's got a kid. You don't have the right to make those kind of demands. And I guess maybe as a mom, you feel that way too, is like, there are probably guys you've dated like, hey, every weekend we haven't been able to hang out, or, they try to make time and it conflicts.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. I never really got my kids involved. After I was divorced, I didn't get them involved in relationships. I think they met one person. I haven't had a serious relationship since 2014.
Okay.
So I think your video games are my relationships, right? So maybe I'll take up video games.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'll do.
But I mean, it's just one of those things where you'll get to a good place and you'll meet somebody, and it's like, you're not going to take me out of this. You're only going to add to it.
Right. And so my kids are, like I said, are super independent, and they don't like, it's not like they're going to meet somebody and it's like, oh, are you going to be my stepdad? That's not really in the cards. They just want to understand who, am I happy? And that's the thing too, is my kids have matured to the point where they're like, go out, get on a dating app, go do this, go, and I think they just want, and not that I present myself as I'm unhappy.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that they're they date, they have girlfriends, you know what I'm saying? So that they were like, well, why wouldn't she? So, and I felt like I was doing the right thing as a parent by, you know, if I couldn't find a healthy relationship, why expose them to something that isn't healthy, right? But maybe I overcorrected. I showed them nothing at all. So, you know, I mean, I could go back and say what I didn't, you know, did or didn't do that was right or wrong. But, you know, I'm happy with how I've raised them and how I've presented this myself as, you know, a person who was in a relationship, or, you know, I've got phase 2 of my life that's coming up. I mean, I had my kids at 23 and 25. So, you know, I don't feel like I've missed out on anything. I feel like there is time to have a relationship. I just have to get over this fear that if it doesn't work out, that it's not failure. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I would counter that. You show them that, hey, you don't have to settle for anything less than what you want. And I feel like that's an even stronger message than just to show like, hey, dependencies, you know, there's a dependency thing there. You can be independent. You don't have if you want to be single your whole life and that makes you happy. And that's right. You know, it doesn't mean that, you know, that's in the cards or that you won't find somebody. It's just that I'm not willing to compromise on what I want in a relationship just to be in a relationship.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I wasn't like that. No, I'll tell them financially, it's a lot easier with someone else, but I never want that to be the motivating factor.
Unless it's a lot of money. Unless
I mean,
if she's like a bazillionaire, I'm like, yo, what kind of drinks you like? I'll have those ready for you when you get home. It's from
okay
work.
If she has a mustache, that's fine.
I can wear a little kimono and be like, okay, what kind of I can learn how to make martinis and like, what if you had a hard day at work? No, sorry. You want me to rub those corns on your feet? Let's go.
You know, I've thought about that. I don't even know if I could be that person. Which is, I think, a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when and if I ever get back out there, I want somebody that I can laugh. I mean, laughter is like a core of what I do in my life and what I like to surround myself with. Somebody that I can laugh with. You know, somebody that's insanely rich and somebody that's attractive. I don't think that's a lot to ask for.
It's not.
Right?
Not in Dallas.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But I mean, it's one of those things where, again, like I told Mallory, it's like you just add to it. You're not going to bring me to a point where I'm not going to need, I want you. I don't need you. And that's
right.
It's like, because if I feel like if I need you, then that's going to be like, hey, where are you? Or, hey, you know, I haven't talked to you. And I was like, I never want to feel that kind of dependency because I was in a relationship like that where I dated a girl and she wanted to break up and I didn't catch it. And so I thought, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, she's telling me it's okay not to come hang out. I should still hang out and show her that I'm really into this. Because the first girlfriend I dated, I just did comedy and would see her whenever I wasn't doing comedy, which was like midnight to 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. And so we didn't spend a lot of time together. And so I basically, you know, just inadvertently pushed her to the guy she's with still to this day. But it was, you know, I just realized that, okay, there's sacrifices you need to make. You can't just do what you want. And then when you have free time, be like, oh, you know, I can come spend the night on Wednesday. That's not a real relationship. So I learned from it. And so the next one, I just 6 months, I learned that. And I was like, okay, next one, full on girlfriend. Like I will take time off of comedy and I will pursue things that she's passionate about. And so she was passionate about haunted houses and stuff. So yeah.
What?
She loved doing that stuff. She liked, you know, playing up in rock costumes. Like, I'll do it. I'll do whatever, you know, I will make this work. And lo and behold, 6 months later, she ended up finally breaking up with me. But it was the last month of that relationship was probably one of the most emotionally, like I can't describe how paralyzed and weird I got because I was just thinking, she didn't give me clear signals, and whenever I would try to get clear signals, she'd be like, oh, yeah, it's fine. because I'd be like, is everything okay? And she'd be like, yeah, it's okay. And but
you knew.
Yes.
You knew
and
enough to ask that question.
Yeah, and it was just I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I would sit there and, every conversation would be a question about what, was going on in that relationship. Like, maybe this is that, what do you think of this as a present and stuff? And I still ended up giving her birthday present. Like, we broke up on her birthday, which is also Halloween. And,
oh God! So you were at a haunted house when this happened.
Yeah,
you had to have been.
Yeah, and so I was like, it was a great. When I've been broken up with, it's usually been a wave of relief, because in my gut I feel like something's wrong. And with Mallory, we've broken up a couple of times, and gotten back together and things like that. But I've never felt like, just broken or, I messed up. I just was like, it was a wave of relief on the first one, because it was like, okay, I didn't know how it was going to be. I was terrified of being broken up. Like, that was one of the things too. Because I'd never had a relationship. It's like, I was terrified that I'll be that guy that's calls, that's, hey, I'm in the neighborhood, just stop by. I didn't want to be in
front of your house.
I didn't want to be that sappy guy because I didn't know how to turn that off. Like, I was afraid that I wouldn't know how to turn those
to
feelings.
Throttle it.
Yeah. Or how to let go. And when she broke up, I was like, okay. And it's like, I had all her stuff in my car, like, just in case. And I, gave her my stuff. And then I was just, I didn't sleep for a couple of nights because just the change in routine. Like, okay, I'm not talking to this person anymore. I've got to.
Yeah.
And you learn little, I guess, heartbreak and breakup tactics of, okay, delete their social media. How do I feel the time that I would be texting right now with something else, or, just throttle down?
Yeah, I don't even know how I would fit anybody into my world at this point. But I also think that if the right person comes along, when you would make that time, right?
Yeah.
But
or it would just fit naturally. It would just happen.
Right.
Which is the weirdest, like, way to describe it, which is like, I feel like even if you explain it to your kids, it's like, I know this doesn't make sense, but it'll just fit. And it sounds like such a fairy tale when you tell people that too. Like, it just kind of falls into place, and that, they don't, it feels to like, as if you're not in a relationship, like, that doesn't make sense. There's no, how is it going to fit? Like, you want more detail, and you're just like, there's just no way to explain it.
Yeah. I mean, unless they were a comic, or unless they worked for me, I don't know how anybody would fit into my situation right now. But again, I'm filling it with something I'm passionate about and something that I like. So I am fulfilled in that way. It does suck. Let's be honest. We're humans, and we're built to be in relationships. So there are elements of it, but I'm doing a good job of compensating for it. And I have for several years. So,
but I also feel like to me, like, a relationship is just community. I was like, we're not loners, we're tribal people. And I was like, to me, depressive thoughts, all your negative feelings or stuff is basically your survival instinct. Because when you're alone by yourself, your survival instinct picks up and is like, hey, you're by yourself, you're in danger.
Yeah.
And that's where your negative thoughts come from, is if you're alone out in the wild, hey, you need to find some help. You need to get out of it.
Got it.
And that, to me, that's where depression comes from, is it's your survival instinct saying, hey, you're not part of anything. You need to find something to be a part of. You need to be in a community of people, because alone we're in danger.
That's interesting perspective. I mean, I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think when I'm alone, I find company with Keith Morrison, and I watch a lot of Dateline.
Yeah.
And it's also just reinforcing why you shouldn't be in a relationship. Like, don't marry a dentist because he's going to murder you on a boat, that kind of thing, So it's just like, it helps. Yeah. I find my resources. Yeah.
But I mean, you need time away, but you also, like I said, because you have that community of people at DCC you can.
And there's a noticeable difference when my crew, and that's what I call, like, basically bangers, like all the group of comics that I hold so dear to my heart, when they're not around, it's a noticeable difference for me. And that's why I love Friday and Saturdays so much, and even like Wednesdays with open mic. because I get to see my people.
Yeah.
I get to see the people that I care about and that I love being around. Now, have I questioned or no? I have not questioned whether or not people are my friends because I don't like they've been my friends for a while, right? So just because I'm a booker doesn't mean that I don't think there's anybody that doesn't have a genuine friendship with me that I consider to be a good friend.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And even if I did meet them after I started this job, there's just a camaraderie there that I can tell the people that are just trying to be my friends for one reason and that are truly my friends.
I call them the people that shake your hand when they don't need to shake your hand. Like they just like every time they see you, they make a point to shake your hand, and I'm like, I get it, I get what you're trying to do, but it's having the opposite effect of what you think it is. Yeah. Like I am in a position of, I guess, some authority, but I don't really exert it. I don't really push it or have people. I don't really like, and even when they do thank you posts, I used to get on my guys when they would like, don't thank me, you did the work. Like all I did was see you. I was like, I really didn't do anything other than see you. So don't thank me in your post. Thank yourself and thank the club and things like that. Thank you for the crowd and everything else, but I didn't do anything really other than just put you in the spot where you are, can do what you do. It's like, it just always made me feel uncomfortable. It's like, I don't like to thank you for putting me down in a ledger. I was like, I don't feel like I deserve credit for that. I feel like you deserve credit for doing the things that make me notice you. And that's how I've always been. So like you'll rarely see me tagged in those posts. It's like, that just makes me feel uncomfortable. It's like, as a fellow comic, I was like, I'm lucky enough to be doing what I do so that I can see you every night of the week if I have to. Like I don't have to be at one club. I can be at, I just enjoy doing open mics. So I can see you at TK's. I can see you at improv. I can see you at a bar. Like I don't have to like sit in a room and watch you guys, and I don't have to, because people, and I'm pleasantly surprised at how little, and maybe it's just because I've set parameters and I've always stayed the course. Like there's never been a, ooh, how did that guy, it's always there may be that initially, but they'll watch those guys perform like, okay, there's never been somebody that's like, that's, kind of, I guess, got in, I would say, through means of not comedically earning it.
Yeah. There's very few things that I say that I'm good at. Mm-hmm. And I do feel like what I'm doing now is something that I am good at. I do, I take a lot of pride in building shows. Mm-hmm. And I love, it's this reciprocal kind of like positivity of, I put some really good shows together. They do a great job. And you know what I mean? Yeah. The club benefits, the comics benefit. Yeah. It validates that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. The audience benefits too, because they then come back and they see bangers on the calendar. They know what that is after they've gone to it. Like, okay. And they'll come back to those same shows because like, okay, what's bangers? Oh my God, these guys, Right. And it may not be the same guys. It may be one guy they saw before. Oh my God, I remember this guy,
I saw that at Ralph's Weekend. I saw people that had seen him, I believe, at a Bangers, mm-hmm. Or had featured for someone else, and they came back for that. And I just love that. You know what I mean? But I do feel, subconsciously, going back to the relationship thing, I don't feel like I'm good at those. I feel like I'm really good at this. Yeah. So I am replacing that time and energy with something that I do feel, validated by, I guess you could say.
Well, and again, it's the heart wants what the heart wants. If the heart wants to book comedy shows, then that's what the heart wants. Maybe you'll find someone else in your that's also a booker or something like that, like just another booker or something at another state. You're just good. Maybe just together, just looking at your rosters, like who, right? Just spending the nights by the fireside booking comic.
Yeah, maybe one day. Yeah. I'm a little too competitive though. So it can't be like a closed club. It's got to be one for... Hold on. My kids are calling me. Hold on a second. Sorry.
It's okay.
I am listening.
It's okay. You're a mom first.
Yep. He's leaving for work.
Well, I thank you for doing this, Jamie.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find you on social media if they wanted to either check you out, or do you want them to even send you or follow you?
Yeah, sure. I don't care.
Okay.
I am Supastah20, SUPASTAH20 on Instagram.
And for those that
and
don't
Jamie
know,
Lee Hogan on Facebook.
And for those that don't know, Superstar was a movie back in the early
Yes. I'm a huge SNL nerd, so that's kind of an homage to that.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Jamie. Hope you have a good rest of the day and have great shows tonight.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, I'll see you soon.
So that was Jamie Lee Hogan. It was a great episode. Really enjoyed the conversation. It's really, really thoughtful and, again, strategic in how she does things in her life and how she manages to find her own happiness. I kind of do similar things. Like, I am happy being me, and so sometimes that's just enough, and it doesn't need to be more than that. And so, thanks again to Jamie Lee Hogan for the time, and she's always a great friend. She's been with, helping me through things when I was at one of my low points, and she's just an amazing human being. And so I was super honored that she actually took the time to interview and actually brought, this is an amazing conversation and fear to the show. So check out Jamie Lee Hogan at Supastah20, SUPASTAH20 on Instagram, as well as Facebook. She's an amazing person. Come see some of the shows at Dallas Comedy Club. I actually was there this weekend with Ian Bagg for the early Saturday show, which was a fun time. I had a great time there, and then I did a show with Barry Whitewater, who also opened the show. And so Barry was the opener for both of the shows that I performed at last night at Dallas Comedy Club. Thanks again for Barry for considering me. He also does the graphic design for my comedy and the podcast, which unfortunately he is so busy that he will not be able to do any more of my graphic designs in the near future, which is a huge letdown for me because I thought he had an amazing eye for graphic design. It's what he does anyways on his day job as well. So check out Whitewater Comedy. I will need to update my credit reel because he has changed his Instagram handle for the upteenth time, which has left me high and dry as far as that goes. But he's an amazing human being. Check him out. We'll try to get him on the podcast as a guest for the show here in the future. As for me, just another week of doing stand-up and getting life back in order. I'm kind of in a weird place at the moment and just kind of trying to sort through what's going on in my head and my heart and do the best I can. Right now, my apartment is a complete waste of space right now. I did buy a new fan, so I've got 2 fans in my bedroom now because it's been so hot these last couple of days. I was like, I want 2 fans going in my bedroom, and it feels amazing in there. It's amazingly cool. It's a nice breeze. I love it. And so I'm happy for that. I've got a couple shows coming up. I've got a show in July that I need to sit down and try to make a flyer for Dallas Comedy Club. It's going to be called The Joke Machine, and the idea is to have audience participation and as well as comic participation and creating bits and just kind of trying to create those memorable jokes that people love. And I just think it would be a fun show for everyone involved. So we'll get that going. It's going to be in July on the Dallas Comedy Club on late Saturday show. So hope you check that out. Other than that, I've got a few shows on the calendar. Hopefully we'll be auditioning for the Funny Bone in the near future to try to get in as a middle on their clubs, which is a 16 club rotation. So that would be really cool to be a feature at 16 clubs across the country. Sad news, one of the club GMs for the clubs I work at, the Looney Bins, Jeff Jones, passed away suddenly and unexpectedly. And so I'm kind of reeling from that too. And whenever someone that I know passes, it kind of just makes me introspective and just kind of think of my life as a whole. And where am I at? Am I happy if, if things, because as you get older, you just kind of think of things and you just wonder if everything ended tomorrow, how would you feel about that? Do you feel like you resent it, or did you feel like there's things that you missed, or do you feel like you didn't get everything out of life? And I feel fairly content that I've gotten a lot out of my life and that I wouldn't really have, I guess, regrets per se, but you never know. And so I just strive to be the best I can be every day, and hopefully, tomorrow brings better days, and hope my thoughts and prayers and everything go to Jeff Jones and all his friends and family and the Looney Bins families of all the clubs at Wichita, Tulsa, Little Rock, and OKC, as they're all just having to go through this. And so many comics that I work with have had memories with Jeff Jones that I never got to meet the man. So hopefully everything comes out good for those people as well, and they, are not completely, they can get through this process and come out better on the other side. Thank you for Jeff Jones. He did give me an opportunity, and I'm very, very proud, to be a Looney Bin comic. And, it's definitely something that I cherish, and I appreciate him and all he did for me, even when I never met the man. So thanks again, Jeff Jones, and hope you guys have a great week. Thanks again for listening to the Sum of All Fears podcast. If you like what you hear, leave a review. Thanks for listening, and have a great week. And now some thank yous for the folks that make this show possible. Thanks to Barry Whitewater for my art and graphics. You can follow him on Instagram at bwhiteh2o. Get it? H2O like water. You can also follow him on Facebook, Music. A huge thank you to Gunnar Olsen for the wonderful music provided for this podcast. You can follow him on Instagram at gunbuns, that's GUNBUNS, as well as his website, gunnarolsen.net. Check out some of the samples that he has recorded. They're amazing. He's an amazing percussionist. If you want to follow the show, we've got a Facebook group, Sum of All Fears. Instagram, Twitter, you can find us at Some Fear Fans. If you have some feedback for the show, email me at somefearfans, SOMEFEARFANS @gmail.com. I'll be happy to take those into consideration. Also, if you'd like to be a guest, email me at somefearfans@gmail.com. We can try to iron out some details and get that settled in. Give us some feedback. If on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, leave a review. It makes the show bigger, and it's not going anywhere. I'm going to record as many shows as I possibly can. If you want to follow me on social media, I am at Ryan Perio. It's RyanPerio on all social media platforms. You can follow me there, and you can check me out at ryanperio.com, my website. I'll try to list upcoming shows there as well. It's been kind of spotty because as soon as I set it up, that's when the pandemic happened, and everything's kind of just in a holding pattern. Thanks again for listening to the Sum of All Fears podcast. Next week, we'll have another guest with another fear. Thanks for listening.